Hey there, horror movie tea sippers.
The following podcast episode will contain spoilers for the movie we are about to review. If you have not seen the movie and do not wish to have anything ruined prematurely, please do not continue to watch or listen until you have seen the movie.
And welcome to the Horror Movie Tea Podcast. Today, we are covering another Board Now request. Thank you, Board Now, for the request again. We are covering the movie that came out in 1977 called Hausu, which is a Japanese horror film, which translates to, I'm sure you can guess, house. But before we go into the review, let's grab our cups and talk about tea. So, I'm back to my Sailor Moon. I really want to burst out in the theme song, but I will avoid. And we didn't finish our tea from last time, so I'm still drinking the Mandalorian, the child green tea. For those who didn't tune in last week, it has green tea, natural honey flavor, linden blossoms, eleuthero, and panax ginseng.
And I am drinking the ginger with probiotics. And it's got ginger, cinnamon, licorice, cardamom, hawthorn, turmeric, star anise, black pepper, and some stuff I'm not even going to attempt to try to pronounce, because I'm pretty sure those are the probiotics.
I'm kind of tempted to, see what does it look like?
Go for it. It's the italicized.
Oh, yeah, it's like
stuff. Good luck.
Bacillus coagulans. Star anise. Ooh. Yeah, but I think it's Bacillus coagulans. But yeah, that'd be the probiotics.
Yeah, it's the probiotics. And it's delicious, and it's full of ginger flavor, and it just punches you in the face with it, and it's delicious. But the cardamom, tempers it, so it's not, super spicy, but it's so good. It's energizing.
That I have found issue with a lot of ginger teas give me heartburn, so I wonder, since it takes out ginger.
That's surprising.
Ginger causes heartburn.
Oh, it helps mine.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, it helps settle mine.
But I wonder, since it cuts off the spice, if it would make the heartburn a little bit better. Anyways. For our tea sippers out there, brew yourself a cup of tea, sit back, relax, and we hope you enjoy the review.
I wish you luck on this summary.
Oh. I mean, the summary itself really isn't too complicated. It's about this girl named Gorgeous. They'd use their nicknames. But the father called her Gorgeous too, I think.
Yeah, I have no idea why.
Yeah, so I don't know for sure if that's her real name or not, but I can at least say definitively that the other girls, their names, they have names like Kung Fu and Fantasy.
They did say at one point that they call one of them Mac because she's, always hungry.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that most of the names are kind of like nicknames.
Yeah, there's no way that Kung Fu is a real name.
Or Professor.
Yeah, so I would assume that Gorgeous is a nickname that maybe the father, also caught on to. But anyways, the girls are wanting to go on a trip, and so the main character, Gorgeous, decides to write her aunt, who she hasn't seen in a number of years, to see if they can stay with her. And the aunt's like, sure, I haven't seen you in so long, come on, you can stay with me. And so they go there, and pretty quickly, weird stuff starts happening.
Oh, yeah, it's almost immediate.
And the girls are slowly getting killed in very weird ways. And the aunt is, you can tell she's regenerating in some capacity. And yeah, that's really the most straightforward summary of the movie. We will get into why otherwise in entertainment. But anyways, so for entertainment, this is a very difficult movie to rate.
Go first?
No, it's okay. I'll talk myself into a rating as I digest. So I can really appreciate this changing up the typical like haunted house movie. Like even in some other like Japanese horror, it even changes up the formula for the Japanese horror like haunted house. It's a very strange movie. There were a lot of experimental shots, a lot of experimental effects, but I feel like the 70s and probably the 60s, they do, even in some American movies I can think of, they did experiment a lot with different shots, but this movie went all out. But it's such a weird mood because it doesn't really feel like a horror movie until they get to the house. And even once they're at the house, you're like, okay, this is for sure a horror movie, but it doesn't feel scary. It's just strange. But it's like in the first half, it's a very like happy-go-lucky, like sitcom or like Disney series type of feel.
Daytime kids show.
Yeah, where it's like la da 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 da, and it's just like everyone's so happy. And then they go over to the haunted house, and it's like the mood changes slightly for sure. But like the only thing, it's like one of the girls gets eaten by a piano. And then another girl who gets decapitated, they pull her up from out of the well, and the girl's head floats and then bites one of the friends' butts. And then there's a lot of random nudity. And to me, it didn't come off as like overly sexualized nudity or anything like that. But it's just like all of a sudden they would be nude is like, okay. It
was weird.
Yeah, so while I can appreciate this movie changing things up, it's one of those where you might have to watch it a few times to fully comprehend what exactly they're trying to say. And what's interesting is like the aunt's story and why she's doing what she's doing is actually really sad. Like it calls back to World War II and how her fiance had promised that he would come back from the war to marry her, but he never came back. And so she's trying to stay young, and while like consuming these girls, she like becomes so young that she like is like dressed as a bride or whatever. And it's because she's waiting for her fiance, which I feel like is a very classic story that comes from Japanese horror, but the way that they tell the story is just so out there. So I tried to look up to see if there was a meaning that maybe we were missing. I didn't see any, so it's just a wild ride, but I can appreciate it, especially since World War II happened. You know, just a few generations of that movie being made, seeing, you know, the newer generations not really caring about the past versus like the older generation still scarred by what happened during that war. It was a very educational dynamic to watch, but yeah, as far as the rating goes, I don't know. It's so unfocused because like, and what's weird is like the characters almost have like movie genre names, like Kung Fu. Every time she goes to fight, they like make it an action movie. Every time fantasy is thinking, they like see her like getting picked up by a prince, and then she's like, oh la la la. Like it's just so strange, but at the same time, it's like they obviously were purposely making it this way, so I can't really hate it for it trying to be different. And it did tell a cohesive story, but it's just like all of this other stuff was so baffling that it kind of like, oh man. Okay, I will pick a 6. Mainly because it is a very difficult movie to watch just because it's so out there, But there's so much about the movie I can appreciate that they tried. It's definitely not a movie for some people. I'd say some people definitely would not enjoy any part of this movie. But for others that, you know, you enjoy horror movies, you're okay with weird ones, you want to see something that changes up the typical genre, this is worth a watch. And the fact that it came out in the 70s and is shaking up, you know, Japanese horror and then traditional American horror, I think that's pretty impressive. So, but yeah, that's my convoluted story. This is what happens when I don't take notes. But what would you rate it?
I give it a 5.5.
Oh, we're pretty close.
It's kind of a meh movie, but a lot of that I think was because it's hard for me to see it as a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of dark themes, and I get that, and some scenes are supposed to be creepy. I do understand that. They weren't. But it's just so lighthearted throughout the entire movie. I think it was only truly kind of dark in one scene, like by one scene, where Fantasy was like floating on part of, I think it was a tatami mat or...
Oh, like in the water?
Or a door or something. Yeah. In the water.
That's a cool effect.
It was. And, I mean, it was... At that point, it was starting to kind of feel intense, sort of. But it still didn't feel quite scary. And I don't know if part of that is like the lighting and effects they were using. It felt really lighthearted.
The music, so much of the music too was lighthearted.
Yes, the music was gorgeous, and it was very relaxing and soothing, and it was really difficult not to fall asleep, honestly. But
yeah, we were like dozing off a few times. We're like, nope,
stop
nope.
it. Can't fall asleep, must watch. But it was really good music. It was pretty, it was light, it was beautiful, but it didn't really fit what all was going on. Like, even if they took it like a half step down and made it a minor key, I feel like that would have helped. Like, start out in the major key, but then throughout the movie, bring it down to a half step lower.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they intentionally, like, kept it lighthearted. It's just...
I'm sure they did.
It's hard to understand why they had that intention. Like, if they're just trying to shake things up, or if they're trying to have, like, an underlying mood to it.
Or it could just be a cultural thing that we're missing.
Because there are some, especially, like, the older Japanese horror, they'll have music in the background that doesn't feel like scary music.
Yeah.
Like in Premonition, like, they had played this one song that, like, makes me want to cry. It's so beautiful, but I'm like, this is a horror movie.
This doesn't make sense.
So I think a part of it is like the cultural differences in their film making, especially at that time.
Yeah. But it was just everything seemed so happy. Even when they were dying, a lot of it just seemed happy. So it was very confusing. Especially
the piano. Though I will say with the piano, that was interesting how it was switching from the pretty melody to the, you know, playing with like the keys and making it minor and stuff like that. So it's like, based off of that, they definitely knew what they were doing with the music. But it's so hard to... I mean, I guess it's one of those movies that just... You can have different interpretations since the director doesn't, you know, outright state what their intentions were.
But it is definitely an acid trip of a movie. I feel like it definitely implies that there were just as many drugs in Japan as there were in the US in the 70s. It felt almost Alice in Wonderland-esque.
Yeah, it was.
That level of craziness and what the hell's going on kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell what was happening, but at the same time, you were wondering why.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense, because it's like with Alice in Wonderland, you can still tell that there's a cohesive story, but like so much other stuff is going on that you're like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that fits fairly well.
Just like riding that razor's edge of insanity.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know, like I said, for all the death in the movie, it still felt just super light and happy. So I was wondering most of the movie, like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
It's not scary at all. A lot of the things were actually humorous. Especially when the decapitated head bit the friend on the butt. I'm like, where are you biting, madam? Why are you doing this?
That was so funny. But I don't know if they're trying to be scary though.
I don't know. I mean, it was all right. I definitely enjoyed it a lot more than Lamageddon for sure. But it was interesting to view. I'm not upset that I watched it at all. I probably wouldn't go out of my way to see it again. But if it was already on, I wouldn't say no to watching it again. Like, it's just kind of a
Yeah. It's like with this movie in particular, with Lamageddon, there's no like multiple like things to digest, right? It's Lamageddon.
It was pretty straightforward.
But with this movie, it feels like they're purposely bringing you down through different avenues. I feel like I personally will be watching it a few times to better digest. Because it's like you have the dynamic of the sadness of the fiance missing due to World War II. But then you have the happiness of present day. And it's almost like they're trying to make those like collide, like the past versus the future and what will overcome. I do appreciate that they actually killed off the main character. Like you never see that
That's
in any movie ever.
I mean, it happens. It's just really rare.
Yeah. Well, especially in a horror movie. They're like, oh, if it's it happens once in a while, but and the fact that they killed off the main character so early in the movie, because normally, even if they kill off the main character, they wait until the very end. Like they are the last of the group, and then they get killed. But yeah.
To be fair, when the main character did bite it, no pun intended, the aunt was then masquerading as her.
Yeah.
With some kind of illusion. So she was still sort of part of the storyline.
Whenever it was the mirror scene and Gorgeous was like looking in the mirror, I kind of got a sense that maybe the aunt had possibly killed her mother. Did you get that at all? Or do you remember if they described at all like what happened to her mom?
I don't remember them describing what happened to her mom. I just remember them saying that she had passed when Gorgeous was young.
It does make me, the fact that...
But they also said that she had only met the aunt once.
And it was at her grandmother's funeral.
Which doesn't make sense because they had mentioned a different time. Like when the mom brought her to her hometown. So that time it just didn't make that much sense. It didn't add up.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like I kind of got a sense that they're trying to imply that the mother somehow got killed by the aunt. Because it's like you do see when the mother is in the bride outfit, the aunt's off to the side, and the aunt does not look... Like, she looks heartbroken, the fact that she's not there. And so I could totally see her doing that. I don't know.
Maybe. But I'm not sure.
Yeah. But... the realism is going to be very interesting because even the premise of the movie isn't realistic.
Yeah.
Like, the most realistic part is the family dynamics of, like, the aunt having the fiancé that didn't return and then having the mother die at a young age, or while the main character was at a young age. But everything else is just so, like, I don't know how it's possible, but it kind of feels like it's either on par with the realism of Lamageddon, if not slightly less realistic. Because at least Lamageddon, the original premise is kind of like, maybe. But this is like, what the heck? I think I'm going to go with a 0.5. I don't know. I think we have rated some stuff like a 0, but it's just, there's so little to grasp onto the realm of reality. I think that's why this movie is so difficult to comprehend as you're watching it, because your brain's just like, what what's going on? Like, I don't know. But yeah, like the deaths are completely unrealistic, like getting eaten by a piano, or having the piano like eat off your fingers, and then you put your hand back on the piano and then your wrist, like your hand gets eaten. Like, that's completely unrealistic. And then the decapitated head floating and then biting someone's butt. That's pretty unrealistic. Or the girl that like falls in the water and then is suddenly naked.
Yeah.
It just, yeah. And then the aunt looking, I mean, I guess it's interpreted that because she's been consuming other people that she's not necessarily aging as quickly as she would, but she looked like someone in her maybe 40s with a white wig on. Like, she did not look old at all, but
at one point she looked older. They did show her at one point looking much older, but then they aged her backwards again to show, you know, when she was consuming.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
one of the girls, that it was making her youthful again.
Yeah. Well, and I also have to wonder, how much older is this aunt compared to her mother? Because if the mother got married...
Yeah, she can't have been much older.
Yeah, like...
Even if, on the off chance she was maybe 10 years older. They didn't look at it all, but maybe.
Yeah,
she still wouldn't have been too old.
Yeah, so the timing of that was kind of strange. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's pretty much... I will say one thing that just made me laugh that I have to add to the realism is the fact that the watermelon guy, where it's like, oh, do you like watermelon or whatever? And the one guy's like, bananas! And the guy's like, no! And he like just disappears. And then the guy that talks or says that he wants bananas, he literally becomes bananas.
Yeah. It's bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S.
Like, I feel like if you ever need to describe how weird this movie is, that is the scene to be like, this is what you can expect from this movie.
That's accurate. That's an accurate gauge of the movie. Yeah.
Or the head biting the butt. Or the piano. It's like, and what's interesting, like, all of these deaths are...
Or the girl getting attacked by bedding. Yes.
Yeah. Like, all of these deaths are super strange and fairly memorable. Like, this is a movie that I'm probably going to be like, you like weird movies?
Yeah.
Watch this one. It's like the friend test.
This one will take you down the rabbit hole.
It's like, if you can watch this movie, then we're BFFs. But yeah. This would have been a great movie to watch with V.
It would.
Dang it.
I actually give it a 1.
Oh.
The same score as Lamageddon. For kind of the same reasoning. I can see the overall scenario happening, not the deaths, not the craziness that we witnessed taking place in the house and around it, but the girl getting upset that her father remarried.
Yeah.
With no prior heads up or anything. There was like, it was out of left field.
Yeah.
Like, no prior, hey, I'm seeing this girl. I want her to meet you at some point. No, just, hey, BTW, you have a stepmom now.
Yeah, and it's like, her mom died 8 years ago, yeah. So it's like such a sudden change. I would be very upset by that.
Especially since she and her dad seemed very close. She seemed to have a very close relationship with him. They did everything together. She seemed to be like daddy's little girl. So for there suddenly to be a new woman in his life with no prior warning or anything, not even a mention of her, it's very overwhelming. And I can see her not taking that well. That made sense to me. I think it was a little overdone, but the whole movie was. So I could see some of that happening. I could even see her wanting to find some way to escape in a way. So like getting with friends and going somewhere if possible, just to get away and think. I could easily see that, and I can see the stepmom being like, I need to talk to her. I want to try to work this out between us without your help, she was saying to the husband. So let me go talk to her. I will bring her back. It's a test as a new mom. Like, we're gonna have to work it out anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, see that kind of thing happening.
I feel like it was probably unnecessary. Like, I feel like the father should have.
I can understand why she wanted to do it herself.
Yeah.
I can.
The stepmom, she looked like a freaking model.
She did. I can see that kind of thing happening because if the dad is constantly there to step in, then she's not going to have any kind of ground to stand on going forward. Now, he should have talked to the daughter first. And he should definitely apologize for that. If she had been alive to bring her back. But we will never know. But I can see that kind of thing happening. And I could even see, like, her going to the suspicious aunt's house and them all dying before the stepmom could get there. Again, not in the acid trip of a way that happened. But I could see that kind of scenario potentially playing out.
Yeah.
Everything else was batshit. It was entertaining batshit, but it was batshit nonetheless. So I had to kind of rate it on the same scale as Lamageddon, just for the same reasoning. Like, the base scenario kind of thing, I could kind of see happening.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else was a WTF.
Yeah. Yeah, like, okay, like, for me, I feel like this movie was even more of a WTF than Lamageddon was.
It was a trip. But funny enough, I did enjoy this one more than Lamageddon.
Yeah.
And the effects of this one weren't that great either.
Yeah. Like, I'm curious, like, for you, is it because the movie obviously was trying to be a good movie, or?
I think that was part of it.
Since Lamageddon has more like a home movie type of
Yeah, but
feel.
it also felt like it had a bit more depth.
Yeah.
With Lamageddon, it was all surface. What you see is what you get, and there's nothing else to this.
Yeah, like, there's definitely something that this movie is trying to say.
Yeah.
But or at least I didn't completely understand what it was trying to say.
It was very tragic. And what made it more I can't talk today. What made it more tragic was that because the daughter was dead, there is no one to bring back to the father. And now that they didn't say for sure whether or not they had married yet, he said she's going to be your new mom. So if she's not married, then the aunt preys on unmarried. They specified that pretty heavily.
Yeah.
She preys on unmarried girls.
Yeah.
So if they're not actually married yet,
then
she might not go back to him either.
Yeah, I definitely got the interpretation that the stepmom more than likely was dead. But yeah, I forgot about that little tidbit. So it would make sense that they weren't married quite yet.
Yeah.
Well, because I'd imagine even though he brought it up to his daughter very suddenly, I would imagine he would still want her to be a part of the wedding.
I would hope so, but it really depends on the individuals and the family. I have heard of it happening before. I don't agree with it.
Well, but I think we're also a little bit naive to Japanese culture.
Definitely.
So I don't know if they can have Las Vegas weddings, or it's like, or especially at that time, like
I have no idea.
Like from my understanding,
sure they had something akin to like go down to the court justice and get married by a justice of the peace kind of thing.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like Japan is very much about like tradition and culture and stuff like that, and it would.
They're big on family too.
Yeah, so it just doesn't make sense that we. Yeah, so anyways, with those, I think it's fairly safe to conclude that they weren't married.
Yeah, that's all I got though. It was an interesting movie. It was an acid trip without the acid, but
it makes me not want to take acid ever.
This is one you probably don't want to be on anything when you watch it.
Yeah, it's like if you need a good anti-drug campaign movie, just show them this is like what it's like when you're on drugs. Yeah, you're like, no, please.
But it is another good one to watch with friends or in a group. It's
yeah.
You could watch it on your own. I just feel like you'd get more out of it.
Yeah.
Talking about it with people.
It is kind of, I feel like older movies tend to be like this, but it feels kind of slower. Like stuff is happening, but it just feels slow. And so I feel like watching it by yourself, you're kind of risking maybe.
For those that get scared easily, this one's safe.
Yeah. Really the creepiest part was when you saw the hair crawl up the girl's back when she's in the tub. That was genuinely creepy.
But then they didn't capitalize on it.
Yeah, they just were like, okay,
it was
done.
Almost there, and then...
Yeah. But this is definitely a good movie for people that don't really like scary movies.
Yes.
Because it's not scary, but you still have those horror elements, and it's a great movie to watch with friends. Get a bunch of snacks, you can do commentary, you can be like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
But then you can also, like, break down your interpretations of the movie, too.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a fun one to watch than scary.
Yeah. It's a fun, deep movie.
Yeah.
Which is, you don't really see a lot of deep movies that are, like, fun like that. Like,
that's all I got though.
All right, well, thank you for joining us today, and please comment on what you thought of the movie. And if you'd like to keep up to date with our content or recommend a movie for us or recommend tea, you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and most places you listen to podcasts.
And if you'd like to support the podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to our content. We also have a Teespring available if you'd like to support us monetarily. And everything will be linked down below, all the sites mentioned, and our tea as well. And until the next time, guys, stay safe and stay spoopy. Bye!